Hello there, fellow Hoodats. Going live tonight. Basically, talk about rumors. And in one of the rare instances since I've started doing this, that things line up better. Normally, it's chaos and things don't work out as I intended them to. But in talking about NFL rumors and Saints potentially involved in some of them, we kind of had this weekend. I noticed a little come around again, I guess you should say. And it started kind of on Friday when I saw this tweet because I follow Matt Miller, who's an NFL draft analyst for ESPN, and he and Dan Orlovsky were kind of having an exchange on some things, and Saints kind of came up, and Orlovsky had thrown it out there. It's like, well, Kellen Moore seems to be a strong fit. Kyle McCord, who was Syracuse's quarterback this past year, strong fit together. Miller's like, well, I've heard the Saints front office loves Rattler, which Mickey Loomis, I don't know if he quite used the term loves, but he did mention Rattler specifically in his end of the season press conference. And so it's kind of a fun exchange and just nothing really saying, oh my God, that they love Rattler. They're going to try to trade Carr, which it kind of turned into over the weekend because Sunday morning, I'm on the porch drinking my morning coffee, kind of going through YouTube and Twitter and YouTube on my, For You tab. There was something about basically Saints trading Derek Carr or something. And I'm like, why is that coming back around? That was something I even did a video on it a couple of weeks ago. In fact, my video was one of the on the tab. Once I clicked on it, was on the page. But there were some newer ones. And a few even kind of references. Now, none of them were actually throwing it out there as this is a rumor or it's going to happen or nothing like that. It's a lot of about what we're going to do tonight, kind of exploring, hey, is it even possible? Is really the topic, or is it probable, or is it actually happening in some cases? But I get to Twitter and I think some Saints fans and honestly some other people who just follow the NFL that are not necessarily Saints fans kind of took this exchange and some others that were close to it and ran with it, let's just say. And the thing is since it's on paper, it's not in context. So you don't know if somebody's kind of just trolling, making fun when getting these conversations. So it's sometimes fun to follow them if I'm in the right mood, but sometimes you're like, really? That's an interesting take. The one that sticks in my head is somebody had put in there something. Oh, look, hey, you want to fix Saints? Go ahead, trade Derek Carr, sign Justin Field in free agency. And I was like, okay, there's some things there that and I don't know how that could possibly work out, but it got me thinking, which is always dangerous, and going, well, how exactly would that work? In some of the videos I talked about earlier were kind of along those lines. Like, well, if this was serious, how could they make it work? So we'll talk about that a little bit. Definitely going to talk about Kellen Moore and some stuff happened there today that we'll mention, but we'll come back around to that. But when it comes to Moore and rumors, I'm of the opinion you sometimes find out unofficially before something officially happens. And in this case, Moore and the Saints cannot consummate the marriage until after the Super Bowl is over. Everybody knows that. That's the official part. But unofficially, when you start hearing stuff swirling around and people willing to put their name on it, look, nothing's a done deal till the deal is done. We all know that. But you start feeling a lot like last year is my best example. Right about this time, we were going, we're about 90% sure Clint Kubiak's going to be the offensive coordinator. I had to wait a week for the other 10% to come through to make it 100 and official, but you get my point. This morning on the Pat McAfee show, Adam Schefter kind of put his name on that rumor. saying barring a setback, which again we're going to get to in a minute. He's the guy. So this is something where I would go prior to I saw this where I'm going, it ain't 90% yet. And I still don't know if it is because this is really the only one that's kind of stuck that on there. His name on it is Shefty, but it gets you closer to where you feel like some things are settled. The other thing about rumors, you hear constantly, kind of moving back to the player side, um, almost to the point I don't even acknowledge him anymore. So I can't tell you if Miles Garrett was one of the players that I saw, but every so often you kind of get this run of so and so's unhappy and is going to request a trade. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Um, been hearing stuff like this for a few weeks, so that's why I can't tell you one way or another whether or not Miles Garrett was one of them. But today he officially came out on Twitter and in all intents and purposes says, "Hey, I want out of Cleveland. I want him to trade me." Guarantee you there's some other players that when those rumors come out may have some truth to it, some bite to it. Conversely, the other thing you kind of hear, and we got a confirmation of that today that I can show you, is that, and I don't know if there was ever a rumor about the Rams wanting to trade Cooper Cup, but he came out on Twitter and said the Rams informed him, "Hey, we're trying to trade you," and made a little post and thanked Los Angeles because he's been a Ram since he was drafted. So set this all up the long way to explain like all the different stuff that's going on right now. My good friend Scott Fields used to call this point from like the Super Bowl till basically till the league free agency period opens and the league kind of starts. He used to call it the NFL lying period because he said nobody's telling the truth right now. Until to put it in Northerns, he had made a comment on one of the videos about it being official, which is 100% accurate, not until it's official, till you can announce it. But the rumors, and as my friend said, the lies, um, they swirl around, but sometimes there's grains of truth that start adding up after a while and may come to fruition. You don't know if this is any legitimate rumors, sort of like the stuff we were talking about with just Miller and Orlovsky kind of going back and forth. They weren't starting a rumor. They weren't reporting anything. They weren't announcing anything. They were just speculating and having some fun with it. But then it kind of takes on a life of its own. Um, Once I went through this whole process of this weekend and seeing a lot of stuff like this and some videos made on it on YouTube and other places, the thought process went back to how does something like this really look for the Saints? And as an example, because he's the popular kind of um lightning rod for a possible trade, I guess you could say, is Derek Carr. And I'm like, how does that work? If there's any reasonable expectation of Derek Carr, the Saints trading him, and I get why he is because of what we think they're trying to do about rebuilding and having to take a couple of years realistically to do it. And his contract's hanging over the Saints' head like a sword, basically, and with no real outs in it, not much wiggle room, unless he's willing to take a pay cut, which he emphatically said he's not. Can't blame him. So how does this all work? Because it kind of makes it messy to be able to move somebody you'd like to move if somebody would have actually wanted him. And so I started looking at what I have here is made a little chart of the first 9 draft picks and Pittsburgh at 21. And the reason why I have them there is because these all fall into some category of definitely need a quarterback when you're looking at question marks at QB1. Pittsburgh case and Giants case, no QB1 or QB2 right now, which is a bit of a problem. And then Cleveland with Watson, who's retore his Achilles, so he's hurt again. Even despite the fact, even if he was healthy, there was a chance they would probably try to move on from him. Las Vegas with O'Connell, who kind of, I guess, right now is the QB1, but we don't know that for sure. Of course, Aaron Rodgers with the Jets and Carr with the Saints. Next thing I'm looking at is like, who has money and who doesn't? Well, we know the Saints don't. They're 54 in the hole. Cleveland doesn't. They're 30 in the hole, thanks almost in large part, if not exclusively, to the insane contract they gave Watson. But everybody else is sitting 20 million under the cap or better. And New England is sitting real pretty at 120 million under the cap. And one of the few teams you can, well, probably the only team you could feel really comfortable in their number one quarterback in May. Carolina, Young may have shown enough this year to join that conversation. So the first thing you're looking at is any of these teams looking for a quarterback, if they're underwhelmed by the rookie talent, that kind of takes drafting a quarterback, I wouldn't say off the board, but may cause them pause. And even today, I read something with Sanders and Ward are going to likely be drafted in the first round, and some other names like Dart or Milrow being pushed. Which one's the QB3? Nobody really knows. So therefore, how can you slot them? But even people guessing at least two of these teams on this list are going to be willing to take Sanders and Ward are going, but are they truly elite generational quarterbacks you would want to take in the top 10? And I have not heard a whole lot of resounding yeses. Not to say they won't be or can't be, but nobody's willing to look at them and say the stuff they were saying about, if you just think back to last year, Daniels and Nix and Penix and Williams. Granted, there's probably no universal truth in any of it, but by and large, most of the analysts, most of the draft guys are saying somebody in that group, if not multiple, are going to be in that number. And they probably all weren't being taken as high as they were. Daniels looks like a hit. Nix looks like a hit. Penix, once he finally got on the field, looks like a hit. So there's some value in that. The feeling I get from the rookie quarterbacks is more of a 2022, when you were talking about, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, that whole set. And you had some first and second and third round draft capital taken on what has largely been a very underwhelming class that nobody was really hyped up on when it came out, except apparently Pittsburgh for Pickett, because they took him in the first. When most of the analysts and everything else saying, look, there's some potential there all over, but I get the same feeling what was talked about there, going, don't know how many of them are really worthy a high amount of draft capital. A lot of that feeling coming from this particular class. The pre-draft process just started, and that could all likely change. Who knows? But if you're looking, one of these teams buys into that, they're going to draft him. And so trading for a veteran like Carr, not really on the board for them. How many of them would be interested under that set of rules? And if they want a veteran quarterback, what are they looking for? They just looking for, they think their team is getting close. They want a bridge because they don't feel comfortable with any of the quarterbacks in this class. They want a bridge veteran while they draft the rest of their team up. Try to get them better. Try to turn their fortunes around and figure out the quarterback thing later. That does happen. However, you're looking at, as we said earlier, that massive contract and the way it's structured around Derek Carr, and the fact that somebody trades for him on March 17th, unless they get a restructure or rework or whatever, that's another 30 million guaranteed. And that's just a hard thing to move in a trade. He's willing to restructure, which basically a restructure keeps him on a team 2025 and possibly 2026. So if somebody wanted to bridge it 2 years while they're trying to figure out the quarterback and they're making the rest of their team rock solid better, maybe it's a plausible. But I don't know really on that list who would kind of fall under that. It would probably have to be one of the other teams. But the thing is on all this, if you're going the veteran quarterback route, if you're looking for a bridge and you get into free agency, well, there's two routes you can go there. If you have enough money and willing to spend the contract and believe in Justin Fields is the name that comes up most popular because everybody kind of assumes Pittsburgh's re-signing Russell Wilson. They could very well decide to re-sign Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson's the guy they don't sign. And of course, Sam Darnold, Minnesota. You throw a bunch of money at them if you have it, and give them the contract and bring them in, and that might be more attractive than trying to trade for the veteran bridge quarterback that Carr would likely be. But if you're going to go that route, there's guys like, oh Lord, the list is just, and I'm not saying they're better than Derek Carr by any stretch of imagination, but what I am saying is they're going to be cheaper. So the difference in salary compared to the difference in play is what you're really weighing against. If you're one of those teams, when you can get a Jameis Winston, a Daniel Jones, Trey Lance, Marcus Mariota, most of these guys are likely just career backups right now, but go the route of what Vegas kind of did with O'Connell and Minshew this past year, put yourself in this position, because odds are Vegas may be one of those teams who are willing to roll the dice on a Warren or a Sanders. So the last thing that you pull in this consideration is teams who are interested in Carr just might wait till the Saints cut him and then go take a run at him. And if he wants too much and they can't bring him in, look at some of the other quarterbacks we just talked about. So, and you can't even discount the realm of possibility that the Saints aren't going to bring Carr back under some way, shape, or form with some type of restructured deal that ties him here longer, gives him more money, or some combination thereof. And when you look on the flip side of it, on all this, is exactly what does the free agency side look for it on the opposite end of that rumor? Because there's people saying, well, if you can move on from Carr in a trade, you can sign Justin Fields. So can you really? Or Russell Wilson, or Sam Darnold, or why would they want to sign here? You got to answer that question first. It's not because they're going to come in and go, that team is this close, me away from being a real contender. It's quite the opposite, in fact. And the other thing is, how in the hell would the Saints pay him? Well, he could, which would basically throw out another Derek Carr like contract to one of these guys, which is big signing bonus, prorated out through future years, creating more dead money, guaranteeing a large sum of it. So you're going to be on the hook for that when those years roll around with those guarantees, much like Carr in 2025. You're just repeating the same thing over and over. So, the conversation, well, they're better, they're not, they're whatever. At this point, if I'm the Saints, unless it's Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, I'm not willing to do that at this point. Plain and simple. If the Saints were the last starting job available and you had one of these free agent starting type quarterbacks, then maybe. That's like the only scenario I can really go, one starter left, one job left, the Saints. They may be able to come to an agreement. Now, using those examples, this is really where the rumor mill would or would not come in with the Saints, is basically, as far as trading, take out the name Derek Carr and put in any player we have who's a veteran, who's getting on the back end of his contract, who still has some money, especially some guaranteed money involved on it, whatever their level of play is and whatever another team is expecting, those contracts we've been handing out can still be sticking points. And because of that, take away the position of quarterback. Any free agent we may be interested in bringing in, we're going to run into the same problems as we would in the example of trying to bring in Justin Fields. It's not doable. I mean, you call it plausible, but how likely is it? I mean, we were starting this off, going, hey, what percent is the Kellen Moore Saints deal done? We don't know. We assume, we guess, we get little nuggets like Shefty's thing today on the Pat McAfee show. We feel a little more better, feel a little better about it, but we don't know. How would you work this if the Saints were trying to move contracts and money in the form of moving players and trades? Again, how? It's going to be a very difficult proposition because the list of all the stuff we're looking at to make it go from plausible to highly likely to a done deal, you got hurdles to clear. And the reverse of those hurdles are the same if the Saints are trying to bring in anybody. I like to keep my eye on this because much like Schefter signing his name in that Pat McAfee interview to one of those rumors, despite the fact that does not make it 100%, puts more a little more validity in it. You never know. One of these things that I'm basically poo-pooing right now, in some way, shape, or form, may get thrown out there one day, and you may get the confirmation of yeah, we're trying to trade him a la the Rams and the Cooper, and teams are interested or whatever. And just kind of look at it and go, it's going to be tough to pull off. I think what we're looking at from the Saints, the phrase we're going to have to take our medicine this year. In some of these, trade this guy, trade that guy, sign this guy, sign that guys, with the idea, the thinking of we're going to be able to compete in 2025 or trying to compete in 2025 or, well, maybe we get 10 wins if we do this or do that. I honestly don't know if it's possible, as we're pointing out. I don't really know if it's even worth it. And just going, no, let's fix our underlying problems first. Get in the position to, acquire talent. We're going to have to do it through the draft right now. Maybe we can land some free agencies, or maybe we can work a trade, more of that in a second, that is beneficial to us to help us build towards. I want the target to be 2026. And if you happen to be able to pull it off faster and you can make the hit in 2025, fantastic. I just don't want to wait till 2027. That's really my goal right now. Now, there is some set of circumstances where the Saints could trade some players. I think really the only two viable options is players who are still on their rookie deal or have had and I've got two in mind for each one of these, one in mind for each one of these scenarios, or a rookie deal that they restructured one time, just some bump in pay to kind of extend him a year. So you look at the wide receiver position. Olave's still on his rookie deal. Basically in the last year of it, whether we restructure him to give him more years, a lot like we did with Mark Ingram when he was in that position years ago, or we just pick up the 5th-year option on him and worry about it later, or if we don't do anything and it's a 4-year deal and we'll have to go from there. Shaheed, we gave him the bump last year to kind of keep him in the building. So he has money on the table this year. If not for their injury issues, Shaheed with the knee and Olave with the concussions, there's a good chance people would be knocking on our door right now looking for one of those two, knowing that in the bottom of the whole salary mess is you have two young players before the injuries that stacked up on them this year, two young players that it's going to be incredibly hard for the Saints to keep both of them over the time frame we're talking about. But we may have been forced to trade one of them. And knowing in this draft that you could probably draft the number 2 to go, because whoever stays is going to obviously be your number one, or at 9, draft a number 1 and go, we'll have a 1A and 1B like we had when both of them were here and healthy. So I can definitely see that possibility. The other one is veterans, and I think Eric McCoy might be the only one that kind of falls in this category. But a veteran at a premium position where even though he's got money on his contract, and this would be a combination of future guarantees or guaranteed money this year that they'd be willing to take because, look, using McCoy as a specific example, there may be a team out there. Jesus, if we could ever figure out our problem at center, we're going to be really, really good. And if they have the money available to work it out, which you can get for them. I don't like trading centers like McCoy because we saw what happened when you don't have a replacement. And I know there's teams that went through kind of the same similar thing without having a true center there, being able to handle it. It caused havoc like we had to take. So that's a total double-edged sword. But any other veterans, and there may be a few more that fall in that category that somebody's going, okay, look, there's not much left in the deal. We know it's guaranteed money. We can eat it because this guy will make us incrementally better that we need, as opposed to trying to find somebody in the draft or finding somebody else with similar that much talent in the money situation that we can afford to take over the contract. And I think basically when you're talking about trading Cooper Kupp and Myles Garrett, they're both really good football players with some really interesting contracts. I haven't gone in and picked them apart or anything, but they're two of the top players at their position. So they're making pretty much top money. You're gonna have the same issues trying to move those guys as far as contracts and years left and all that other stuff. But it's Cooper freaking Kupp and it's Myles freaking Garrett. So you pull a trade for one of those if you're one of the other teams around the league that can afford to do it. Are you really taking a gamble? Yeah, I don't really know. So this is, again, like I said a couple weeks ago, whether or not this can happen, whether or not we can pull any of this off, some of this stuff would absolutely be beneficial to the Saints. But just looking at what needs to happen to be able to do it, it's going to be a very tough ask. Now, the other thing we're talking about rumors, and this is really what I thought we'd talk about mostly for a couple of reasons. It took a different turn. Let's just say, because as we talked earlier, there was just this kind of growing vibe. Stuff coming out. The Saints aren't taking any more interviews or doing anything till after the Super Bowl, which, while not confirmation, everybody was just taking it as a sign that goes, oh, they think they're going to get more. Moore not pulling his name at any point in this process, in still technically in. Goes, he kind of interested in the job. They're not going to be talking to each other anymore until after the Super Bowl, and I think some people were kind of settling in. I know there's other rumors and indicators. If you watch some of the other, or read some of the other stuff that's out there in the media from around New Orleans, they're all saying we're hearing rumors, but I don't think they're like anything hard and confirmed. Which we're talking about. Every one of these little nuggets, little grains of sand, kind of starts adding up, and you start feeling, I don't know if better is the word or more sure, but you a little more confident, maybe, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and go, okay, this might have been taken care of, and we just have to be patient and wait. And then when you read the Shefty thing, barring something basically unforeseen, and then today, and this is all I'm going to say on the subject. There is a developing story. Going back to the Saints' involvement in emails sent to the Archdiocese of New Orleans about 5 years ago or so, involving their issues. And don't want to dive deep into any of that stuff because that's not my bailiwick. That's not what I do here. But there's some really good coverage out there that I would say, if you want to explore further and find out what's going on, go follow it. They're going to do a much, much better job. And I don't want to get into the other stuff surrounding it. And I thought long and hard to even mention this, but kind of feel like you have to, because that could be the unforeseen circumstance where Moore is all set to join the Saints come next week. This kind of breaks out and it gives him pause because I understand as an outsider coming in and have nothing to do with any of this. What was released today, what happened 5 years ago, what happened before that, but all the players, and I don't mean players and football players. I mean all the entities involved in this heinous scandal that they're talking about, just not wanting to be a part of it for various reasons. Yeah, you probably fill in any number of things that would cause a human being to go, yeah, I just don't know if I want to take that job now, and I think that has to be acknowledged, and I think it has to be that could be part of this conversation of what we're talking about on the football sense. And I know since all this broke roughly 12 hours ago that I saw it. In the interim, Roger Goodell in his press conference addressed it. The Saints have addressed it. This is another reason why I really don't want to deep dive or take questions on it or comment on it. It's an evolving situation, and you don't know how it's going to turn out with the whole crux of the matter. Basically, is going to boil down to in the end. And I definitely don't want to give judgment on anything that's going on with this, but it it is one of those external things that can happen where what was thought to be 100% done deal doesn't get done. And I think it needs to be acknowledged and addressed. And I've done so, and that's probably all I'm going to do with it. The other flip side of that, the rumor of Moore and the Saints kind of reaching an agreement, is there were some rumors floating around and even this rumor may be a strong word, some whispers, maybe, possibly, of some names um, that he could bring from Philly. Offensive line coach is been mentioned. Quarterback coach was mentioned. This happens to be Garrett Nussmeier. Brandon Staley was bouncing around as a possible defensive coordinator. I don't know if any of this has any teeth, or if it's more like the Orlovsky Miller kind of back and forth speculation thing that takes a life of its own a little bit. I did see Nick Underhill say something today that he's kind of hearing, but he said they're rumors. I don't know if there's any, basically said, any truth or anything that can be confirmed about behind the scenes that, yeah, he's trying to put a staff together. The other thing was, and this really wasn't rumor, we kind of knew this was coming with Kubiak taking the offensive coordinator job in Seattle, and Derek Foster had already left. He's taking the running back position coach job at Dallas, that some of the Saints offensive staff was going to be siphoning off. Janoko looks like he's one. And then John Benton's name showed up today. The offensive line coach looks like he may be falling to Seattle. So it's not per se the rumors of what's coming into the Saints as much as are also what they could be losing also. So the whole coaching rumor mill, that's the one where you just feel like there may be some grain of truth in there. There may be some Saints staffers staying on the offensive side. Other than Hodges leaving on the defensive sides, I don't know if anybody's really talking about what's going on over there or what's going to happen. I guess it's a wait and see. Um, but as far as I know, like Barone or our wide receivers coach, which I believe is that his name is just left my head, but I think it's Washington. But they're highly touted guys, and I think we'd love to keep them in the building. And I think there's some other teams I would love to have them. And other staffs are filling out, and I really hadn't heard their names floated around, or if it has been, or if they've taken a job, I've completely missed it. So the room mill on that end, very, very interesting. And I think as this gets closer to finding out, yay or nay, whether the Moore Saints marriage is going to become official Monday or maybe Tuesday of next week, roughly 7-8 days. I can't see it any more than that, where we won't get a definitive answer, yes or no, by that point. I think as those other coaching possible rumors and names and may float around, may have a little bearing on that, may even be a little bit part of the read of, yeah, the answer is going to be yes, or No, the answer is going to be no. So, quick recap of the rumor mill of touching base on if a trade could it happen and how? Free agents, could you bring them in? Could it happen and how? And kind of the situation on the coaches. And I know y'all been lighting up with questions. We'll get to them in a minute. Real quick, just on the rundown, I got channel update just to let y'all know what's going on. We're kind of getting to the lull right now of Super Bowl's about already happened. The NFL kind of, other than the rumors, which was another reason why I wanted to do that in this live stream, kind of died down for a few weeks. End of February, you got the combine. It's going to kick back up. A few weeks later, you're going to start getting in the free agency and the league opening. Then pre-draft process is real full throttle leading into the draft. So over the offseason in this period, it's a roller coaster. It's kind of up and down. I'm going to scale the live streaming back and reserve it for when the big things happen. So it won't quite be weekly, but obviously as the NFL schedule ramps up every few weeks, we'll get together then. But believe me, I'm still going to be dropping normal video content. You'll probably just see more of those and in a shorter form than the longer live streams and longer forms coming out a little later. So I just wanted to let you know, be aware of that. Double and triple check your notifications also, because I'm hearing wrap around and I'm experiencing it some too. That notifications, YouTube showing up late if they show up at all. And when we're live, other than an emergency situation like next week, suddenly we've hired a coach and we're going to be coming live. I'll try to give plenty of time to let everybody know. That way they don't have to rely on YouTube suddenly unreliable notification system. So just to kind of let you know that. And even though the content's going to be a little different and in a little shorter form, it's not necessarily that I'm taking time off. One of the big things I'll be doing in the interim while that is, you will see, this was the other thing on the channel update. Some you'll see, some you may not notice, but it'll be good, I think, in the long run. Some updates, some redos, some rebranding a little bit uh, to do some of that stuff. And this stuff you won't see the software changes, which all that going on at the same time. So hopefully, what I'm looking for is back live running in a semi-normal pace. Yeah, by the combine, I think that's the realistic target with some improvements of the stuff you are seeing and watching. So good luck to me. Hope I can pull it off. And let's see what y'all got for me tonight. Yeah. Um, the Becky was, covered it. The rumors high. Like I said, I don't know if I'm up to 90%, but I'm kind of getting there. Boring, something else, happening. Um, Starting early. No, I thought I told y'all late. I didn't tell y'all late when I was. Yeah, if I told you the wrong time and I started early, my apology. It totally ran by me. Oh, you're welcome. Um, yeah, no, what I saw, what I posted earlier, the tweet, and that was within the last hour and a half. I saw it. I don't know when he originally put it out. It was more like the Rams were moving on from Cooper Cup, and that he, from what I read, he was saying, "No, I wish he could have stayed in the Rams for his whole career, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen." But to be fair, and to your point, what he puts in his tweet and would go may not be this. There may be another story in there. There may be some other rumor with more truth to it than what he put in Twitter. But you know, as Becky points out, the lying time. Yeah, I mean, this is. I just feel like this stretch from the coach and hired period through the Super Bowl, leading up really into the pre-draft process, there's a lot more lies being told than truth. Lies for purposes mostly, but it's take everything with a big grain of salt. Okay, I think I got that one. Honestly, Northern saying there's no quarterback in this draft class I would take over Spencer Rattler. I kind of feel the same way right now. Now, again, just tip of the iceberg of the pre-draft, but um, I, hype gets generated um, when it comes to this pre-draft process. Hype gets generated a lot of times about guys that you kind of look at and go, "Is he worth the hype?" And it'll happen at a position. Now, when it happens at a position, normally, so like last year, they were hyping up 5, 6 quarterbacks, whatever it was. Majority of them seem to kind of have showed up. Williams is probably the worst of the bunch um, of those first rounders, and I could foresee a very, like we were talking about Bryce Young earlier, something like that going on and going. Okay, year two, maybe they can get him to figure it out, and he can kind of make the jump that he needs to make. I just don't hear the hype with any of it's far from hype. It's kind of just people sighing and going, yeah, Hart and Sanders, they're the top two, and then after that, we just don't know. So under that set of circumstances alone, despite whatever you're going to break down and look at and grade, I feel like if they were in last year's draft, they would majority of them would be for fifth round, around where Rattler was taken. And if Rattler had waited a year and come out this year, he'd be up there, good chance in the conversation with, your top two guys, or in the conversation of Jackson Dart seems to be the hot name right now at number 3. Well, can Dart sneak into the first? Difference between Rattler and all those other names, Rattler has some NFL experience and some NFL starts in his back pocket. Kind of what it's going to look like already with him. You don't know how it's going to end up. Can you get him to the level you need? Or I feel like he's proven, he's at least, again, let's talk about a lot of the 2022 draft classic quarterbacks. Pickett, Malik Willis, those. We know they're all pretty good backup quarterbacks, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they still have a chance to develop further, and who knows? I think you kind of ride on with the Rattler. I think at the very least, that's what you have in him. And like with those guys, potentially they may turn the corner, and Baker Mayfield, eventually had to go down to being backup status and has come back. And there's been a few others that it can happen to. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Hemisphere. I totally forgot to mention his no trade clause, and that combined with I don't want to take a pay cut really puts the kibosh on that. That could change for um when he starts looking at his situation and going, if I go that route, I could wind up, oh, what would it be, about October, November of 2025, in the exact same situation he was sitting in with the Raiders, when they basically said, no, you're done. We going to send you home. Here's your money. And, couldn't find a trade part for you, so we're cutting you. I don't know if he wants to go through that again. I think if second time around, I almost feel like I want to make the bold and probably rash statement. That's the last big contract he's ever going to get. And if he wants to get one more, that he may have to take the cut that's coming from the Saints and just move on, or take the trade that may save a little face for him and allow him to renegotiate it down, but keep him in the league or with that team through at least 2026, 2027. But again, that's a lot of things got to go the right way for that to work out. But yeah, they're gonna. I think that's the most likely scenarios is uh, designated post June 1st cut, and they'll split the money up between 2025 and 2026. Relieve a lot of cap pressure doing it once you get to that point, which is what I said earlier. I think the realistic expectation, we have a real shot in 2026, making the significant moves we got to make. Yeah, Northern bringing up Daniel Jones. Oh, a massive hit that got the Giants in this situation, doing stuff like that. But um, Carr being a veteran, Jones has time to kind of work his way back. Let's just say the Baker Mayfield route. I don't know if it's possible, so I'm definitely not saying that it is or is going to happen, but I guess it could be possible. Derek Carr doesn't have that luxury. That's really what it boils down for him, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I got $40 million on the table total in guaranteed money. I want my 40 million, and I really can't blame him for that. I would want it too. No, Justin Fields is about 10 years younger than Taysom Hill. We're to keep Taysom in 2025. There's going to have to be a restructure with a pay cut, probably the most likely scenario. But with Taysom at his age, injury stacking up, bad leg. We don't know when he's going to. The last time he had any type of serious injury, he did beat his rehab time back. He was ready to go at the start of the season. It was a few years back. Don't know if that's going to happen again. You got so many question marks around him. It's hard to say I'm going to rely on him at a key position. I think the working assumption with him, Shaheed, to a lesser degree, Olave. I know he's cleared and ready to go, but man, concussions are nothing to F around with. Till you know for sure. Again, it ain't a done deal till it's a done deal. So relying on that right now, um, yeah, that wouldn't be the way the Saints need to go when you're talking about that roster spot. However, you're going to use him. Specifically, Justin Fields. I have zero take on Justin Fields, other than the fact that if there is that Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, possibly Sam Darnold thing of former first round bust, goes somewhere, has to be a backup, reinvent himself, whatever, and then show back up somewhere else and suddenly he's an NFL level starting quarterback, then maybe you could maybe talk me into buying Justin Fields. But I don't know. I'm It's not my opinion of people going out and saying Justin Fields. Clearly, I was talking about what other people were saying. So I don't know if I buy into the Fields thing or not, but I guess sad to say, that could ultimately at some point be the Saints' best option, depending on how everything else works out. Yeah, a huge, huge injury question mark with the concussions. Um, I have. I'm not going down that road. Sorry. Run that by somebody else because I think I know what you're referring to. And like I said, I acknowledged and said what I'm gonna say on the subject, and that's that. Oh, sorry, wrong Nussmeyer. Yeah, Garrett's his son. Who, oddly enough, let's talk about that for a second. Um, his son Garrett was Kuiper's big board at one point, and a few others while the college season was still going on. Had him as a top 5 and a possible first rounder for whatever that was worth. And he decided to go back to LSU for his senior season. The reason why that's interesting, if you look at the success last year, I mean, I 3 of the top 4 because May I think was a 3-year guy, and I can't swear to that. Maybe he was 4, but I know Penix, Daniels, and Nix all were extra year guys. Kind of mature veteran quality almost. They had played so much in college. And it was some things brought up about the NFL looking at these young quarterbacks and not collectively, not all 32 teams, but there were quite a few who were like, look, if you don't have 20 plus starts as a quarterback and some other positions, like it just takes too much for us to get you to the level you need to be had you had that college experience. And telling some players to go back. Now, Garrett's father is quarterback's coach for Philly, so And I am not starting a rumor. I'm not saying this actually happened, but I'm just wondering with some of the NFL teams kind of talking about that and it coming up in conversation. Um, Athletic maybe had an article on that um, back around October. I saw the blurb for it on Twitter. It was behind a paywall, so I couldn't read it. But that was kind of the gist of the teaser to get you to try to go get behind their paywall. So I don't know how much teeth it has to it, but again, when somebody throws that out there somewhere, that's one of those. If there's a little smoke, there's a little fire, and it's interesting. One of the guys who could have been in the conversation decided to go back to college, and his dad happens to be. Like I said, I'm not saying just throwing all the facts out there. Let you decide. Oh, thank you very much. Hopefully they come out like planned and not like a lot of my endeavors here sometimes because sometimes it's just trial and error. And but we'll give it our best shot. Mhm. I couldn't juggle if my life depended on it, Saint Northern Saint. So don't know why you're asking that, but that is a big fat no. I am not. I have talents in some areas. Juggling just ain't one of them. So, all right, I think that's probably going to about wrap it up for tonight. Um, so right now, as of now, next live stream, I tentatively have planned combine in about 3 weeks or somewhere around there. It's right at the very end of February. And the one I don't have planned, but I know we're going to have is eventually, hopefully, the Saints hire a freaking head coach. And obviously, we will be live for that conversation. And when we hire him, whether it's more or not, although it really, really feels like it's going to be more until it isn't more. I'm really hoping he comes in. Something else about the rumor mill we probably should have mentioned at assistant. So we'll end the show kind of with this point. But this all went down last year, very similar. Clint Kubiak, as we mentioned earlier, before they kicked off that Super Bowl, everybody, I don't know, knew, but kind of knew, wink, wink, he was going to be the offensive coordinator. And I gotta say, is an amazing act of, and this is complete sarcasm, but it was an amazing act of his part that he could accept the job and have an assembled staff about 2 hours later, ready to fly to New Orleans and sign contracts and get kicked off. So I hope Kellen Moore has the same organizational skills that in a couple of hours' time in a morning or an afternoon or whatever it was for Kubiak, he was able to get a week and a half's worth of work done assembling his coaching staff in such a very short period of time. Wink, wink. So, one of the ways we know that when these things happen, they kind of can find a way to circumvent NFL rules somewhat, which is one of the reasons when we're talking about our names swirling around who could possibly be assistants for more or any of them finding other jobs right now, because that would scare me. But if they're all kind of sitting there waiting, they may not be waiting. They're just waiting for the yes. But telepathy or however they do it, back channels, they've had the conversation and he kind of has an idea of who's coming and who's not. And have the staff assembled a lot shorter than if you look at some of these coaches right now, they're taking days and days and days to do it. Like I said, Kubiak pretty much had that thing more or less just wiped out instantly. So that looks like everything going on there. So thank y'all for showing up tonight. Um, Again, one last as I go into the normal pitch of, first time here, enjoyed having you. If you enjoyed being here, go ahead, hit the subscribe, hit the like, throw in the comments, future videos that'll be coming up, and watch the notification thing. I was told that some people got last time we had a live stream had the notification pop up like minutes before we actually went live. I had a very similar circumstance earlier or last week. So just check them. That's kind of what I'm doing now is every now and then just Am I getting them? I don't know how to fix it if you aren't, but be aware. So we will be dropping. I've got videos in the work. Like I said, it'd be a little more of that genre for a while until we get back to the next live stream. Hopefully 7 days from now with confirmation of a head coach. So till I see you then, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.